Right, Terry. So you took what must have been a bit of a gamble to send them a letter to explain why you should have the job after they told you wouldn't even get an interview. So they obviously were impressed by your tenacity or your reasoning or whatever. So you got the betting intelligence officer job, that 1987.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, I was so chuffed in getting a full-time job with a car and a pension. Um, First year, um, went to Ascot Ladies Diamond Stakes on the Saturday. Princess Royal won the race, and I had an official's badge for being Jockey Club, so I could go anywhere. And so I watched the race and saw that Princess Royal won it, and I thought, I'll go down in the presentation party, get on the end. Got official's badge, I can go anywhere. So yeah, I slid along, looked up at the crowd all cheering, and I thought, God, I've come a long way since being a Pontin's blue coat. Here I am, stood with the Queen and Prince Philip, but they were on the other end to where I was. And walking back to the ring afterwards to do my job, I felt a draft. My flies had been undone all the time I've been stood there. So, good job they didn't come and shake my hand, wasn't it?
So what was obviously betting intelligence officer. I'm assuming, and that's not to be confused with betting ring manager. This is proper investigations that was.
Yeah, of course we didn't have any computers in those days. It was all pen and paper.
Yeah. So you're betting intelligence officer. So what was your daily? What was your job when you went to the races?
Well, prior to going to the races, you'd have to look up the form of every horse and decide, who should be backed, which was favourite, which were outsiders, how they were ridden in their previous race and how long ago. And then you'd go into the steward's room half hour before the first race with the handicapper and the steward secretary and the chairman of the stewards, and you go through the races saying what you thought. If a favourite, for instance, drifted out in the market when the race, prior to the race, I would have to notify the steward secretary saying what there was no money for this particular favourite, and then they would keep an eye on the way it was ridden, and if they weren't happy, the stewards, it didn't run very well, they would then have an inquiry, and I'd have to attend the inquiry and give my evidence of the betting market. And then if they still weren't satisfied, the stewards, they'd send the jockey and the trainer to Portman Square for a full inquiry, which I'd have to go to Portman Square and give the evidence I'd given in the steward's room. So every day you were looking for horses that were not backed and horses that were backed that shouldn't really win, and then give that into the stewards again and say that this horse didn't run as well in its previous race as what it has done today, and if they would then consider interviewing the jockey and the trainer on the improvement of the horse, especially if it was backed.
Right. So back in the day, for example, on the all weather, if it existed back then, you see a horse that's gone from 5-2 out to 10-1 and then falls out the stalls.
Yeah.
They'd already be watching for something. So
Yes, it's.
If that job still exists anymore?
No. It ended in the early 2000s. Yeah, it was. It was a good job. There was about 4 of us, I think, that were in it originally, and then they made it up to 6 to cover the whole country. So we were out regularly. I did have other odd jobs given to me, like for instance, I had to go to a point in Wales. Didn't normally go to points, but Peter Smiles asked me to go and into the car park where the horse boxes went in, because they'd sent the dope box to that particular meeting, and points didn't always have dope boxes attending, but because I don't know how many they had dope boxes around points, but this particular one I had to go to look to see which trainers pulled into the car park, the horse box car park, and then saw the dope box and turned around and went back out again. But it was unsuccessful because it was February and it was frozen, the ground, and they hardly had any runners at the meeting I went to, and so it was on a wasteful journey, unfortunately.
So you would have been going racing, what, 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
Yeah, probably 5 days a week. Yeah. Yeah, that was. Also, I had to go under instructions from Peter Smiles to a harness racing in Tur Prince, which is in North Wales. He sent me and the senior investigating officer because they were considering taking on harness racing in the Jockey Club and Weatherby's, and they wanted a report from both of us, me obviously on the betting side, and report back. Anyway, nothing came of the harness racing. They never did take it on, but it was an interesting weekend out.
Do you think racing was a bit more tricky back in them days? Tricky as in they were at it?
Well, the handicapping system encourages owners and trainers not to be trying every time, so that they can get their handicap rating reduced. I don't think it's any different today, really. It's trainers aim at particular races in the future to aim for with their horse, and they want to give it the best chance.
Now, back in the mid 80s, you had, everybody sort of looks back at it now as the halcyon days of the betting ring, massive players either side of the fence. Who would have been the big players that you sort of came across mainly?
Well, the bookmaking side was like Gary Wiltshire. I can't think of Bob in the Midlands. Can't think of his second name. But punters wise, I mean, Dodger McCartney was a wonderful character. I remember at Cheltenham when Mickey Fletcher, Paul Doherty and Dodger were jibing against each other. So funny. But
Paul Doherty being the Tic Tac.
yeah, and they would really be funny. But as far as, I mean, Johnny Lights was a Londoner. He was a professional gambler. Then in the West Country, we had Roy Hawkins. I actually bred a litter of greyhounds for Roy. We were quite friendly, and he was very friendly with Martin Pipe, with where the horses to be placed in the races. I think Roy was helpful to Martin.
I think I read somewhere that Dave Pipe recruited him because he couldn't beat him.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. Roy was a good friend to me, and I say we bred a litter of greyhounds for him, and one of them actually went to Wembley in the Breeders' Forum Stakes. But yeah, they were the good old days.
But Alan Archie Band, is he another one?
Yeah, Alan, yeah. And I remember Curly Woods, who used to sell stuff at the races. He'd open his coat and he'd have different things to sell. He'd be selling jewellery and...
Was he the men's suits guy down at Newbury? Like the toilets with the changing rooms, weren't they?
I don't know about that. I didn't. Yeah, so there were the old characters of the game are all gone. Not that I go racing much now. I'm still working casual for the PA, even though they made me pensioned me off in 2010 when I reached 65. They could get rid of people at 65 then, but about 6 months later the law changed and they couldn't pension off people at 65. They were...
Right, we've gone a bit fast forward now, because so after betting intelligence officer,
Yeah.
I assume did you end that when the job came to an end? When you
No, I left in '94, but I did do one Portman Square with a horse that was looked to be a non-trial Newton Abbott. I won't mention the name of the horse because I didn't. And the trainer and jockey went to Portman Square, and I gave evidence there, and they both got fined £500 each.
Well, they got found guilty.
Yeah.
Non-jigger.
Yeah.
So was there quite a bit of follow up to your day to day? You know, if you did spot something and they thought there was something in it, would there be a lot of that sort of investigation afterwards? Did you have to look at the bookmakers' ledgers and stuff like that?
No, we never looked at the bookmakers' ledgers, but we just used to write reports daily about. Sometimes you'd write about 4 or 5 horses that you thought needed watching, and those reports would go to the judge secretaries, and then they would follow them up the next time they ran. And then, but you were writing reports day in, day out, and nothing would be done, probably. And then when Neil Wilkins of the Sporting Life came to me and said, would I like to be a SP returner, starting price returner? I jumped at the chance. It meant more days racing, but it was a higher salary, and there wasn't any paperwork, which was an improvement.